Hello, Jer. I miss you. Is that you, Bunny? Bunny, is that you? You need a yarmulke, sir. You need a yarmulke. You need to cover your head. Did anyone read cards for a poker game?
Ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare for the start of our service, we ask you to take a moment now and please silence your cell phones and electronic devices. Thank you.
Can't hear you. I miss you, Jerry.
Friends, we join together this afternoon with a sense of sadness and shock. Jerry was as alive as any human being could be.
Absolutely.
Jerry embraced all of life's gifts, and he gave of those gifts in every way imaginable. I'm not sure one could live more fully than what Jerry did. And yet, it's still far too soon.
You're right.
His absence will be felt not just by his community and his loved ones, but by all of us who call Pittsburgh home. Jerry was a gift to this community. Jerry was a gift to CMU, and Jerry was a gift to his loved ones who remember him today. We begin with the words of our sacred scriptures, the words of the Psalms, seeking God's comfort in a time of sorrow.
Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid ki mini balemot. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid ki mini balemot. Lachin samach libi vayagel kivodi af besari yishkon elav etach. Af besari yishkon elav etach. Amen.
And from the words of the 15th Psalm, Adonai mi yagur ba'ohalecha mi yishkan b'har kodshecha. God, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are like Jerry, who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. And we turn to the words of the 23rd Psalm. We'll recite the words together in English. Please join with me if you know them, and then the cantor will continue chanting them in Hebrew. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me to lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever.
Adonai rohi lo echsar binot deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'magilei tzedek yancheni v'magilei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki ilech begates al mavet lo ira ki ata imadi. Shivtecha umishantecha hema inachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai, shulchan neged sorai, dishantal vashemen roshi, kosi revayam, ach tov v'chesed yirefuni, Ko yemei chayai, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסר. Adonai roi lo echsar.
It's my honor now to welcome our emeritus Rabbi Jamie Gibson to say a few words about Jerry.
Kahapon, tinalsikan buti. Sabi ko, kaya mo, o sige, lagay ko din sa... Ayaw mo, so, tinigwag. Tinalsik niya.
Jerry didn't always go to synagogue, but he lived a Jewish life. Jerry didn't always know the Hebrew prayers, but he had a Jewish heart. Jerry lived up to one of the most famous passages in all of rabbinic literature, which asks 4 simple questions. Ezehu chacham, who is wise, the one who learns from everyone. Ezehu gibor, who is strong, the one who masters passions. Ezehu ashir, the one who is rich, the one who's content with his lot. Ezehu mechubad, who is honored, the one who honors everyone. To which I would have the chutzpah, hubris you might say, to add one more. Ezehu gadol, who is great. Jerry Cohon was great. He had a brilliant scientific mind, a tender Jewish heart, a prophetic seeing eyes, doggedly persistent hands in accomplishing his task. And he did so b'chesed u'v'rachamim, with kindness and compassion. Whenever I went to Jerry for a personal issue, whether it was involving a son or a campaign at Temple or something that was important, he would stop what he was doing. He made me feel I was the only person in his circle at that moment. He had that thoughtful look. He crinkled his eyes, and you knew he was thinking hard. He had that warm smile that let you know that you were accepted and that you meant something to him. Ezehu gadol, who is great. Jerry Cohon was great, and we shall not see his like again. I loved him, and I can only imagine the depth of love that his family holds for him. He brought together 2 communities, CMU and Temple Sinai, good neighbors, we might say. But he also united people in a vision for what CMU could be to our community at large, what it should be, learning not just in the classroom, but in the entire city, making people's lives for the better. Ezehu gadol, who was great, the one with the far-seeing eyes and the tender heart and the dogged hands and the passionate will. May his name always be a blessing. Amen.
It's true that Jerry always made whoever was in front of him feel like they were the center of the world. But in truth, Jerry had favorites. And it's my honor to welcome 3 of them to speak now, Hallie and Nathan and Solomon.
There are a lot of people here who knew my grandpa as Jerry or Dr. Cohen, but I knew him as just Grandpa. Some people might picture him in a suit, but when I close my eyes, I see a man sitting in a white chair, legs crossed, in a long-sleeve neon green shirt that would blind you if you looked at it for too long. Cleveland Browns themed pajama pants with a smile on his face. I picture a man standing by the pond at his house in Ligonier, holding up the fish we had just caught, waving it around and insisting that I give it a kiss, doing his best fish voice and trying to convince me to give me a smooch on my big fishy lips, definitely with a smile on his face. I picture a man in our kitchen, carving the Thanksgiving turkey, wearing an apron that said, "Kiss the chef." After the fish incident, I didn't want anything to do with that apron. He was probably tired from cooking for almost 3 days straight, but he had a smile on his face. I picture a man yelling, "Come on, ump, that pitch was at his ankles," when I strike out looking at a pitch that in reality was right down the middle. This time, he didn't have a smile on his face, but I catch his eye, and that would change right away. When I think of my grandpa, I think of a man that loved and saw the best in me. Whatever I do in life going forward, I know that he would be so proud of me. I will hold that feeling he gave me every time he smiled, wherever I go. In this way, he will never really be gone.
I'm going to miss the trips that we always went on, where you always made me feel safe and comfortable. I'm going to miss our dinners every Sunday night, where he would ask me how my week was, and I would say the same thing: good. I'm going to miss how he would pinch my cheek when he saw me, like I was still a baby. I'm going to miss his cooking, especially on Thanksgiving. I'm going to miss him congratulating me after every school performance, always saying I was the best, even though I definitely wasn't. I'm going to miss hugging him and how he always smelled like cigars. I'm going to miss the fires that he would build and how he would always let me help. I'm going to miss our trips to the Pittsburgh Symphony. I'm going to miss the drive out to Ligonier, where we always stopped for McDonald's for dinner. I'm going to miss driving the golf cart for you and Nathan. I'm going to miss him always giving me tips on how to improve my cooking and baking. I'm going to miss picking out a movie for us to watch at Redbox. I'm going to miss him helping me with my science homework when I had no idea what was going on. I'm going to miss fishing with him at the pond, even though I never caught anything. I'm going to miss him insisting on seeing photos after every school dance. I'm going to miss you forever, Grandpa.
On behalf of my family, my mom, myself, I want to just thank everybody for being here, both in person and those who are watching online. I know my dad would be so honored and humbled to see how many people are here to commemorate his life. Everyone here knows that he was a truly great man, and I'm honored to be here to share the unique perspective of him as a great husband to my mom and a great father to me. My parents met in second grade. Their biggest bonding moment that year was the day of the field trip to the symphony. My mom had forgotten to get her permission slip signed, so my dad did what any gentleman would do, and he forged her mother's signature, a heroic move that she has never forgotten. After second grade, my dad's family moved to a different neighborhood, so they didn't go to school again together until 11th grade when my mother's family moved to the same neighborhood. They started dating shortly after and got married when my mom was 20 and my dad was 19. My mom put her education on hold to work as a legal secretary to make money while my dad finished his degree at Penn and then got his PhD at MIT. Once I was old enough to go to kindergarten, my mom was able to finish her bachelor's degree and receive her law degree through many years of hard work. The two of them taught me everything I know about teamwork. The way they have supported and cared for each other for more than 60 years is a tremendous inspiration. As a father, my dad was everything you would imagine he was: patient, kind, encouraging, and a whole lot of fun. Over the past couple days, I've been thinking about all the great memories I have of him, and I thought that I would share a few. For many summers when I was a kid, we would go on vacation to Ocean City, Maryland. We would stay on the Chesapeake Bay in a motel called the Chalet, which I am pretty sure that all three of us would refuse to stay in now. We would spend the days fishing and crabbing and then cooking what we caught in the kitchenette of the motel room, which then smelled like fish on top of being a dump. But it was really the best. Every year, he took me and three of my friends to the amusement park King's Dominion for a 16-hour adventure that all of us remember as some of the best days of our childhoods. When my mom was in law school in night classes, my dad would make me TV dinners that back then took 45 minutes to cook, and the only choices were fried chicken or like a slice of turkey with stuffing underneath. Shortly after making those day after day, he decided that he would learn how to cook. When he started out, one of the first recipes he tried was called Chicken Diablo. That was a recipe he found in the New York Times. There was a misprint in the recipe, and he found that out in the next Sunday's issue. They meant to call for 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne, but instead printed 8 teaspoons. Being a novice cook and having an engineer's precision, he didn't question the recipe. And my mom and I had quite a surprise when we took that first bite. He ended up becoming a really great cook over the years, and he and I have been cooking Thanksgiving dinner together for many years. Thanksgiving is going to be hard this year for sure, but Solomon, I'm informing you now, you're my new partner. That was Nathan's idea. But my most consistent memory of my dad was his smile, which we've heard a lot about today. When he came home from work to paint a post court in his red Chevy, I met him in the front yard, he would have a smile for me. When I came downstairs on a Sunday morning to the bagels he had gone out to get, he had a smile for me. Last Wednesday, when he came over for dinner, he had a smile for me. And when he left that night, he gave me one last smile. Thank you. Thank you for always making me feel special. I love you. We will miss him so much for the rest of our lives, but we all know he would be furious with us if we let sadness lead the way. We are extremely grateful for the time we had with him and will cherish every memory. We'll work hard to make sure that our happy times are still happy times, and we will always remember your smile. Thank you.
It's my honor now to welcome a lifelong friend of Jerry's, Jeff Wright, to say a few words. Of course.
Shocker. And don't know what to really do with it. Jerry's been a masterful person in my life, and I'll tell you stories. Last night I was thinking all these stories about Jerry. There's so many stories about Jerry, and one I'll tell you. My colleagues who were at Johns Hopkins University at the time when I was there with Jerry, and there was a person that walked in my room when I was noted staring, and this person came in, and it wasn't Jerry. It was Abel Woolman, who was the chair of Johns Hopkins University. And I didn't know this person, and he came in and sat down and said, "I'm going to tell you a story about where you should go to Johns Hopkins University." And I spent a half an hour telling me about Jerry Cohon. And during that conversation, I realized that I was only 3 years older than Jerry. And I'm thinking, how can this, I'm going to be going to the Johns Hopkins University for my PhD, and I don't know how this is going to work. So my wife and I went from Seattle to Baltimore, and we went. I couldn't find the campus. It's Johns Hopkins campus. It's a small campus. It's not the University of Washington. And it took me an hour to figure out where the campus was. And even that night, I said, I don't even know the name of this school. John Hopkins, you know. And I said, I had this conversation with Reds, and he said, you really need to go to Johns Hopkins for your doctorate. And we packed up, and my wife and my dog and my drove to Baltimore. I didn't even really know where Baltimore was. I mean, I know the Orioles and the Colts, and that's another story. So I walked into the campus, and I saw Reds again, and I said, I'm where I can see Professor Cohon. And he said, well, there's on sabbatical. I said, what should I do? And Red said, you don't worry about it, you'll see. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, Jerry came into his office, and he wasn't working. I think it was a Saturday or sometime late. And I walked in, and I said, I'm Jeff Wright. I'm going to be one of your students. And I never forget this. He stood up and said, let's take a walk. And that walk lasted for half an hour and 45 minutes. And when I got back from that discussion, I knew this is exactly what I wanted to do. And I've always had such, just tough. I've known Jerry so long, and so what he's been able to do and where he's been able to do it and why he does it. And he's just incredible. And I told my wife one time, I said, one story is, I only saw one time Jerry slapped a woman. And it was my 3-year-old, my 3-month-old daughter, who slapped the area, both on both sides of his face, and I'll never forget that. I don't know why I said that, but I agree with everything that's been said here, and I can't say anything, nothing behind Jerry. Jerry is just incredible.
This next speaker might be a first in this community. I'm not sure that the leader of Pitt has ever eulogized the leader of CMU or vice versa. But Jerry was an extraordinary man, and Mark Nordenberg is an extraordinary man. And the friendship and partnership that they built will continue to benefit our community for decades to come. It's my pleasure to welcome Mark to say a few words. Good to see you.
Name is Mark Nordenberg, and I am the former chancellor of the University of Pittsburgh. Like so many others in this room, I also am a person who loved Jerry Cohen. He was a great partner and an even better friend to me. I'd like to begin by extending an expression of both sympathy and gratitude to Bunny, Hallie, Josh, Nathan, and Solomon. We mourn Jerry's passing with you, even as we celebrate his remarkable life together. And we're grateful to you for the willingness that you had to share him with us, because our time with him was a true blessing. I also want to thank Carnegie Mellon University for bringing Jerry to Pittsburgh and for providing him with the home from which he did such impactful work for so long. And I'd like to extend a special thanks to President Johanian and his team for the eloquently respectful and appreciative way that you have marked Jerry's passing. And I know that you have plans for more. I vividly remember the first time I heard anybody utter the name Jerry Cohen. It was the spring of 1997. I was in Washington, D.C. at a meeting of university presidents, and Judy Roden, then the president of Penn, who formerly had been the provost at Yale, where she worked with Jerry, came over to me and said, Carnegie Mellon has just named Jerry Cohen as its new president, and you are going to love working with Jerry. I could not have imagined how accurate that statement would be. I sent Jerry some congratulatory flowers and a message saying how much I was looking forward to welcoming him to Pittsburgh. But I didn't even have to wait that long before we started working together. Because while Jerry was still in New Haven, the two of us were summoned to a meeting at the National Science Foundation, ostensibly to answer for the sins of the two distinguished leaders of the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center. To be clear, there were no sins. Instead, these attentive and committed and resourceful colleagues had had the good sense to invest some unspent funds in new equipment just before people in Washington were prepared to reclaim it. And the feds were mad. So Jerry and I were summoned into this somewhat hostile meeting, not knowing each other. But we immediately liked each other. We complimented each other, an engineer and a lawyer, and in other ways. And I think because we both are such straight arrows, we got kind of a kick out of the feeling that we had beaten this rap. When Jerry did arrive in Pittsburgh, we started talking about partnering almost immediately. And we were driven by three basic beliefs. The first was that our universities, like the two of us, were largely complementary. The second was that there was only one neighborhood in America, Cambridge, Massachusetts, that had more academic firepower than Oakland. And the third was that if we could make partnering a priority in both universities, we would elevate each university while also giving this region a badly needed boost. Many of the things that we hoped to accomplish were achieved. That is, of course, a tribute to the talented people, the faculty members at Pitt and CMU, the other members of the leadership teams. It was a credit to the support that we received from Governor Ridge and from the foundation community here in Pittsburgh. But among other things, we successfully pushed for the creation of such important technology-based economic development initiatives as the Pittsburgh Digital Greenhouse, the Pittsburgh Life Sciences Greenhouse, the Pittsburgh Robotics Foundry. We were able, as a team of two universities, to successfully compete for national centers in such diverse areas as the science of learning and quality of life technologies, something that we could not have done without each other. The research dollars competitively attracted by our faculties kept growing and growing and growing. And for a long period of years, the education and healthcare sector was the only sector in the regional economy that grew jobs year after year after year. And that growth was significant, and that growth was principally a credit to Carnegie Mellon, to Pitt, and to UPMC. As we worked together, the trusting relationship that Jerry and I had grew ever stronger, and our knowledge of each university also grew. We used to joke, in fact, that either of us could go on the road to sell the other's university and do a pretty effective job of it. And in fact, we tried some variation on that theme occasionally when we were making joint presentations. Jerry would talk about Pitt and I would talk about CMU, and we thought maybe that little bit of indirectness would give us a measure of additional credibility. I should note, though, that there was one occasion when Jerry took this role reversal a little bit too far. He was participating in a guy's night out at an otherwise respectable club here in Pittsburgh. And I gather that not everybody in the group knew each other. And so the kind of mixer part of the evening involved each man in attendance standing, introducing himself, and then telling a joke, preferably off color. When it came Jerry's turn, he stood up and said, "Hi, I'm Mark Nordenberg from Pitt, and do I have a joke for you?" After that introduction, I'm not sure he even had to have a joke. I should note, though, that Jerry was generally into manly activities more than I was. Cy Holzer from PNC used to host these magnificent events at Laurel Valley. People would golf for a day, and then they'd come in for cocktails, and then there would be a marvelous dinner followed by more drinking and poker. I would drive out for the dinner and then drive back home where I belonged. But Jerry was in for the whole enchilada. There was another Jerry involved in those poker games, and that was Jerry Cochran, who was the executive vice chancellor at Pitt and a very good poker player. It was his goal to take Carnegie Mellon, University of Pittsburgh partnering to an entirely new level by winning enough from Jerry to fund a chair at Pitt. Fortunately, Bunny, the stakes were not that high, so that never happened. And Bunny and Nikki also were central to our friendship. The two of them hit it off right from the start. The four of us had a lot of fun. But Bunny was placed in an unusual situation because Nikki almost never traveled with me to professional meetings, while Bunny almost always accompanied Jerry. So sometimes it was the three of us, and then Bunny had two roles. She was Jerry's wife and my date. And fortunately, Bunny never abided by that rule made famous through country music, that you've got to go home with the one who brung you. Because very often Jerry would bring her to a meeting and then he would fly off to some other place, and Bunny and I would make our way together back to Pittsburgh. Even after we stepped down from our leadership positions, our friendship remained strong, and we found new ways to partner and advance good causes. However, it was the deadly anti-Semitic attack of October 27th that really brought our partnership roaring back as we became committed to and actively engaged in anti-hate work. That all began when we both were asked to serve on the independent committee that was appointed by the Jewish Federation after the attack, and given both the mission of that group and the truly extraordinary leadership of David Shapira as its chair, that became one of the most satisfying experiences in either of our professional lives. And those were careers that were filled with satisfying experiences. With the blessing of President Johanian and Chancellor Gallagher, Jerry and I worked hard to establish the foundation for the Collaboratory Against Hate, a joint research initiative involving both Carnegie Mellon and Pitt. And the two of us also teamed up with the talented and tireless Laura Ellsworth on creating the Eradicate Hate Global Summit. It was our shared goal to create in Pittsburgh an anti-hate initiative that was best in the world. And there are those in the field who believe we have achieved that. One sign of Jerry's commitment is that on the morning of his death, between 5:30 and 6 a.m., he was emailing other people on the board about summit business. Yesterday, I took a stroll around my office, looking at remembrances of special occasions and special people that are memorialized by the things that have been affixed to the wall or displayed on a shelf. Jerry was in so many of these things that you might almost consider my office to be a Jerry Cohon shrine. And taking that inventory also helped me understand that my incredibly deep sense of loss is a direct product of my extraordinarily good fortune in having this wonderful person in my life in such meaningful ways for so many years. It has been said that those we love don't go away. They walk beside us every day, unseen, unheard, but always near, still loved, still missed, forever dear. I don't think I ever have needed such words of encouragement as much as I have needed them in the last few days. And they have been a comfort to me, knowing that my memories of Jerry, including the victories that we claimed, the experiences that we shared, the lessons that we learned, always will be with me. Thank you, my dear, dear friend.
It's my honor now to welcome David Shapira, who worked closely with Jerry at CMU, to share some words.
I was told that I would come before Mark Nordenberg. And all I can say is I've been screwed. But having said that, I found myself in preparing for this to have two sort of contrary thoughts. One was to be really nervous about trying to honor somebody like Jerry. And the second was really wanting to do it. And so I'm standing here today with that mixture in myself, and I just want to accomplish honoring Jerry. I have to say that, first place, Rabbi, I thought you spoke beautifully, and you did express much of what I would like to say. I think Jerry is one of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. And I think it's fair to say that I love Jerry. He's had this enormous impact on me and my wife Cindy and our whole family. And I really don't know how to say thank you to Bunny and the family for giving us Jerry. I'm echoing what Mark said. But you brought a treasure to Pittsburgh and to all of us. So I thought, how could you express the kind of person that Jerry is? And notice I'm using the present tense. And I thought a way to do that was by giving you 4 sort of anecdotes about my experience with Jerry. I did not meet Jerry until he came to Pittsburgh. I was a trustee at Carnegie Mellon. I met him through that. I had the unbelievable fortune of being the chairman of the board while Jerry was president. And there are several things that I thought I should pass along from that experience. The first one gets down to when Jerry was chosen. I was on the search committee. I was a minor member of the search committee, but nevertheless, I was there. And as the field got narrowed down, Jerry was one of the finalists, and the committee decided to interview him. And I had never been in an interview like that, but this was, if you can picture this, there were 8 or 10 or 12 committee members and Jerry. And I can't even imagine what that must have been like from Jerry's point of view. But as a committee member, I mean, I remember it happened and the meeting was called and everybody introduced each other. And we sat down, and then the questions started coming to Jerry from various committee members. And what I realized partway through the interview was that Jerry had mastered every single committee member's name. And when people would ask him a question, he always answered by saying something like, "Joe, that is really a good question, and I'm happy to answer it," or "David, thank you for that question." And I remember being so impressed with somebody who had the quality to be able to do that. And of course, as I think we all know, because we wouldn't be here if we didn't all love Jerry. That's the way he was. When he talked to people, he knew who they were, he was interested in them, and he wanted them to know. So that's one story. These are not in any particular order, but a second story is, while I was chairman of the board, I was also, of course, on the compensation committee. And every year we had to set a budget, and we had to make decisions about what kind of raise levels there would be for the staff and the professors and the people who worked at the university. And of course, that always ended in a discussion of Jerry and how much should Jerry make. And I think it goes without saying, but everybody at the university loved Jerry. And everybody knew what a great job he was doing. And everybody knew that he was underpaid. And you could look at the pay of other university presidents and you could say, we're just not being fair. And every year, this happened year after year after year, we would go to Jerry and say, Jerry, we want to pay you more. And he would say, I won't take it. He would say, I won't take a raise bigger than other people at the university are getting. And it just sort of was a mark of his character. And the board actually was then in a position of saying, well, we know you won't take it, but we want to give it to you anyway. And I don't remember the details of this. This was a long time ago, but I do remember we had all these ways of finagling to see that Jerry could get some more for what he was doing for the university. A third example is sort of tied with that one. While I was chairman, it became necessary to give Jerry I think it was his 5-year review. But I don't remember the details of this, but there was a review committee that was appointed. I was talking to Dave Zombeck about it earlier today. And I'd never been through anything like this. I didn't know how you review the chief executive of a university. But there was a procedure, and the procedure was that we had a committee, and we decided to interview people from the various constituencies that the university interacted with in order to get feedback about Jerry. And I don't remember anymore how many interviews there were, but what's in my head is it was 70 or 80 or 90 different interviews with people from every different kind of constituency, from students to faculty to staff to people at Pitt, to people in the community, all trying to figure out what feedback should we give to Jerry. And I remember when the final report was given to me, and I actually, when I was talking about this with Dave earlier, I said, Dave, this is my memory. Is it true? Because it seems so impossible. But he said it was true. In all those interviews, our committee could not find a single person to say a single bad thing about Jerry. Not one. Not one person, not one bad thing. And I remember getting this back and looking at it and saying, this is impossible. Nobody is this good. But it was possible, and it was Jerry. I want to tell you one last story, which is about Jerry's leadership. Many years ago, this is before Mark's term at Pitt, when the issue became sort of a prominence of should organizations and companies give same-sex benefits. the University of Pittsburgh decided they should do it. And unfortunately, at least from what I understand, it was not handled well. It actually, I think, did pass, but in the end, it alienated the board from both the chairman and the chancellor at that time, and they both ended up leaving. Jerry decided he wanted to do that at Carnegie Mellon. And at that time, the chairman of the board of Carnegie Mellon was a man named Chuck Queenan, who was one of the great leaders in Pittsburgh, in my opinion. And Jerry went to Chuck and said he wanted to do this. And Chuck said, Jerry, I understand why you want to do it, but it's going to be controversial, just like it was at Pitt. And my advice to you is that you should meet with every single board member individually before you propose it, and tell them what it is you want to do and get their feedback, and then make a plan after you've done all that. And Jerry decided to take that advice. By the way, I'm telling you this story because this is something Jerry taught me, and I have done this myself subsequent to that. But in any event, Jerry did that, and he told me that there was one particular board member who I think was, I can't remember who it was, and it doesn't matter who it was, he was sure that this person would be very opposed to this policy. And Jerry was terrified of going to the meeting because he thought, I'll go to the meeting and he'll yell at me. But Jerry was determined, and he went to the meeting, and he said he sat down at the meeting being very nervous. And the other man looked at him and said, Jerry, I think you're nervous. I think I know why you're nervous. I think I know why you've come. And you shouldn't be nervous because I think you're right and I support your idea. Anyway, when the vote came, I remember being at this meeting. There were people who were opposed to it because that was what happened in those times. But there was nobody who was unprepared for the issue. And when the vote was taken, I mean, I don't remember the exact vote, but let's say it was 45-6 or something, that we wouldn't start having same-sex benefits. None of those 6, who, by the way, were very powerful people, none of them objected. They voted no, but none of them objected. None of them quit the board. None of them stopped their contributions to the university, either financial or otherwise. And I thought that was just one of the most remarkable examples of leadership that I had ever seen at the time. Anyway, I hope these 4 incidents somehow communicate the kind of person that Jerry is. And I want to say one other thing, which has been sort of constantly said this morning. In my opinion, Jerry is not gone. He's here. He's here in every one of us. And the impact that he has had on all of us, every single one of us, to say nothing of thousands of other people, is really extraordinary. And that impact does not go away. It lasts and it lasts and it lasts. And, you know, if we just think about those of us who are in this room, it made our lives better, and because of that, perhaps we made somebody else's life better. Jerry was an extraordinary person, is an extraordinary person, and we're all lucky to have done it. Thank you, Jerry.
David, it's true. You were supposed to go before Mark. But had we gone that way, I would have had to follow Mark. And this ain't my first rodeo. Something tells me that Jerry would probably whisper to me or to anyone else right about now, it's enough already with these eulogies. Let's talk about what we can do for the university or the community instead. Jerry accepted having the focus be on him for a time, but much more often, Jerry was at his happiest and his best when being able to do for others. He had an extraordinary ability to see the possibility and potential in others, and he spent his lifetime nurturing that promise in everyone he encountered. Jerry Cohn's gifts, his sense of what is possible, his belief in others, his openness to new ideas and new people, his comfort and joy in interacting with others, all stand now as precious gifts from the eternal. Jerry shared his gifts openly, willingly, happily, and we, his community, his family, his friends, were lucky to be in his orbit, lucky to receive his gifts, lucky to work and create and dream with him. In the weekly reading of the Torah, we will begin the book of Leviticus this week. The third book of the Torah, Leviticus, begins with the Hebrew word vayikra. God called to Moses. The next verse continues, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta alehem. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them. God shares ideas, commandments, gifts with Moses, and immediately instructs Moses to share them with all of Israel. As much as Moses may have wanted to treasure the words or ideas himself, the command was clear. Share with the community, and together craft a new world. I don't know if God called to Jerry or if Jerry felt a call from God. I do know that Jerry understood the importance of community, of sharing, of working together, that God teaches to Moses in the Torah reading this week. Jerry possessed extraordinary gifts, a brilliant mind, a gifted engineer, a loved teacher, an effective leader, a visionary, a loving husband and father and grandfather, and maybe most of all, a holy ability to share with others, to connect with others, to create with others. Jerry and his sister Cindy were the children of Delbert and Ruth Cohon. Growing up in Beechwood outside of Cleveland, Jerry had a good childhood. He was a drummer in high school. He played defensive lineman on the football team. And as you heard earlier, he was totally smitten by a girl he had met in second grade. Jerry and Bunny were quite a team together. They knew a wonderful life. They encouraged each other, nurtured each other, made each other better. They were married young, and Bunny joined Jerry in Philadelphia while he finished his studies at Penn. Then it was on to Boston, where he earned his PhD, and it was in Boston that they became parents, welcoming Hallie into the world. After receiving his doctorate, Johns Hopkins came calling, and in time, Jerry became the youngest full professor in the university's history. At Johns Hopkins, Jerry joined a few other faculty members in starting a rock band. Jerry was a skilled drummer and had a new name. He was known as Clivus Jivus. In the band, the New Crusty Nostrils. Making music was one more way to connect with others, one more way to share for Jerry. The glide from teaching to administration was easy for him. He became the provost at Hopkins, enjoying the increased ability to interact with others. He was always available to his students and staff, and he was energized by every interaction. Yale came calling, and he served as dean of the forestry school until arriving here in Pittsburgh to become the 8th president of Carnegie Mellon in 1997. Jerry loved serving Carnegie Mellon in the city of Pittsburgh. He approached everything with enthusiasm and a can-do attitude. Up at 4 a.m. every day, Jerry worked hard, always making sure that he found time to answer every question and request that came his way. Even in retirement, Jerry was still up at 4 every day, in the office bright and early, and more recently, often back home to have a cup of coffee with Bunny in mid-morning before returning to his office in the afternoon. While Jerry excelled professionally, at home he really shined. He was a loving and supportive father, always encouraging Hallie. He was a kind and giving husband, nudging Bunny to return to school and to pursue a law degree. Somehow he just knew how to help others reach their best. And perhaps his family benefited from this gift most of all. When Hallie first showed an interest in theater, Jerry did all he could to nurture that interest. He never missed a single performance of the Alumni Theater Company, and after each show, he would discuss the talents and skills he watched on stage. He was thrilled that Hallie found a passion and love, and he was immensely proud of all that she accomplished. When Hallie brought Josh home, Jerry welcomed him with open arms and became an extraordinary model. Jerry was happy to offer advice and counsel and always treated Josh with warmth and love. And when Nathan and Solomon were born, Jerry found perhaps his favorite role in life, being their grandpa. Though he lived in the official president's house for CMU, Jerry loved to hide behind the trees and bushes to jump out and scare his grandkids. Tuesday nights were grandparents' night. He and Bunny got to host the boys every Tuesday evening. They played human bowling with the boys in the basement, using a big ball and the boys as pins, laughing and loving those two boys as much as humanly possible. As you heard, Jerry was a fierce grandpa in the stands, always willing to share his views and opinions with the referees. He loved to talk sports with Nate, loved taking him to Steelers or Pens games, and loved to watch Solomon grow into the wonderful teen he is. Spending time together, traveling together, sharing meals, Jerry embraced grandparenthood fully, and Nathan and Solomon might just be the two luckiest people to have existed in Jerry's universe. Jerry and Bunny traveled all over the world, especially enjoying multiple trips to India and Ireland. Jerry loved spicy food, and while Bunny was good about sharing her food, Jerry not so much. If you wanted to see Jerry smile, though, just offer him a bottle of hot sauce, and he would light up. Jerry was proud to have his name on a building at the CMU campus. He was a visible presence, always approachable, always happy to interact. Jerry saw CMU as a key to the revival and future success of Pittsburgh, and did all he could to nurture the connections between campus and community. Colleagues routinely noted that there was no one more comfortable in their own skin than Jerry, and his sense of self allowed everyone he encountered to thrive. Jerry's life came to an end far too soon. One who had done so much for others deserved to enjoy and celebrate so much more. But Jerry leaves behind a beautiful and rich legacy, a life lived helping others, encouraging others, always striving for what is best for everyone. Jerry lived the motto of CMU as fully as anyone could. My heart is in the work. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. May the memory of this righteous soul, Dr. Jerry Cohn, ever be for a blessing. And together we say, Amen. We take a moment now for silent prayer. We invite everyone to rise in body or spirit.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המסי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כי זו הרקיע, מה זהירים. את נשמת חיים בן שמואל ורות שהלך לעולמו. בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר Amen.
God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved Jerry, who has gone into eternity, find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold Jerry close to you forever, so that his soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May he find a home with you, and may he rest in peace. And together we say, Amen.
Amen.